June 19, 1857. Governor General Lord Canning was writing a letter to the British seeking help. It was indeed a serious one. In Rohilkhand and the Doab, from Delhi to Kanpur and Allahabad, the country is not only in rebellion against us, but is utterly lawless. He was mentioning about the armed revolts witnessed in parts of central and northern India during 1857. These revolts later came to be called with many names. First War of Indian Independence, Sepoy Mutiny, Indian Rebellion, generally as the Revolt of 1857. In 1857, Indian Sepoys orchestrated a rebellion against their British masters. Not only Sepoys, later some native rulers and thousands of ordinary people, peasants, joined the uprising to revolt against the British. It was a struggle that threatened to destroy British colonial power on the Indian subcontinent. Let's have an overview on the subject matter. There were long-standing discontents in the East India Company's army against the British. Even though the Indian Sepoys were the majority, they were provided with poor terms of service and pensions, bad pay, lack of promotion, etc. When the discontents were mounting, the use of greased cartridges for the newly introduced Enfield rifle sparked the revolt. It was widely quoted by historians as an immediate cause for the revolt. In the Bengal army, rumors were spread that the cartridges for the new rifle were greased with pig and cow fat. This made them offensive to both Muslims and Hindu Sepoys. Indian Sepoys were already worried about the alleged practices of forced conversion to Christianity by the British. The British insensitivity and apathy to the demands of Indian Sepoys confirmed the suspicion of Sepoys. After several months of mounting tensions, first major incident unleashed against the British was happened in the East India Company's Bengal Army, more particularly at the 34th Bengal Native Infantry Regiment at Barakpur, situated closely to Calcutta. Mangal Pandey was at the core of this incident. Irritated by the British response on the use of greased cartridges, he killed his British commander, Sergeant Hewson. He was the first casualty of the British in the mutiny. When the British officers present at the scene ordered the Indian Sepoys to restrain Mangal Pandey, surprisingly they refused. But they were not jumped into the rebellion with Mangal Pandey. Still the Sepoys were labelled as infidels. The whole regiment was disbanded in disgrace. It angered the Sepoys stationed in other regions. The mutiny properly began at Meerut on May 10, 1857. Shortly before that, 85 members of the 3rd Bengal Light Cavalry were jailed for refusing to use the cartridges. They were broken out of prison with the help of their comrades. They ransacked the nearby military station and killed the Europeans they could find. The following day, on May 11, a band of Sepoys from Meerut crossed the Jamuna River, marched to the Red Fort and appealed to Bahadur Shah II to become their leader. He was the last Mughal ruler and a pensioner of the East India Company. At first, he was not enthusiastic about the rebels called to lead the nation. He yielded after much persuasion by the rebelling Sepoys. Bahadur Shah II was proclaimed as Shahanshah-e Hindustan, that is, ruler of India by the Sepoys. In Delhi, a court of administrators was established, coins were minted, and orders were issued in the name of Mughal Emperor. After the fall of Meerut and Delhi to the hands of Sepoys, news of these events spread. From Delhi, the mutiny soon spread to other army centers in the northwestern provinces and Awadh. Of all the soldiers present in India during that time, there were only 35,000 British soldiers in the whole subcontinent, and these too were widely scattered. Reinforcements called to suppress the revolt took months to arrive. Fortunately for British, the mutiny mainly affected the Bengal army. The Madras and Bombay regiments remained quiet, and other Indian units including Sikhs, Punjabis and Gurkhas helped the British to suppress the revolt. This was the main reason behind the low impact the revolt created during 1857. The mutiny was not confined to the army alone. Later, local rajas, zamindars and peasants who were angered by the company's policies were also joined the revolt. When the British annexed native states to their territory through policies such as doctrine of lapse, it irritated the local rulers. Lord Dalhousie brought out the infamous doctrine of lapse. It said that if any native ruler died without a male heir, their adopted sons were derecognized and their kingdoms were annexed by the company. In this way, Satara, Nagpur, Sambalpur, Bhagat, Udaipur and Jhansi were annexed by the British. Rulers affected by this policy were become the leaders of the revolt. Nana Sahib, who led the revolt in Kanpur, and the famous Rani Lakshmi Bai from Jhansi were some of the examples. Those rulers who were not affected by this policy remained neutral or felt that more could be gained by supporting the British. Not only Sepoys and local rulers, even common people, peasants joined the revolt. Some for religious reasons, some out of loyalty to their old rulers. But many joined the revolt because they wanted to destroy the system by which the company collected taxes. The only interest of the company was the collection of maximum revenue with minimum effort. The revenue was collected with coercion and torture. Whatever the conditions, the government was keen on collecting revenue. A collector was repeatedly informing the British about his inability to collect the revenue from an estate since only grass was grown there. But the British responded by saying, grass is a very good produce and it should be sold for collecting revenue. It showcases the harshness of British revenue policy. When the opportunity was present to vent their anger, peasants were jumped into the revolt. As we have seen so far, it was not a mere Sepoy Mutiny, it was more than that. Can we call it as the first war fought for Indian independence? V.D. Savarkar in his 1909 publication called it as Indian War of Independence. But historians are doubtful about it because the geographical spread of the mutiny was confined to the central and north India only. We cannot call it as a pan-Indian mutiny fought for freeing India from the British. It was not national because those regions that were benefited from the British remained loyal during the revolt. Even though the rebels gained popularity among the masses, the country as a whole was not behind them. The merchants, intelligentsia and Indian rulers actively supported the British. Even the rebels had varied personal reasons to fight against the British. The notion of Indianness was not present at the time. As historian Thomas Metcalfe said, it was something more than a Sepoy mutiny, but something less than a national revolt. The Sepoys could not continue the revolt for long due to the reasons such as absence of strong leadership at the center, lack of unity among the rebels, fighting with swords when the British shooting with guns, etc. The first place to fall in the hands of British was Delhi. After a prolonged battle, British captured Delhi on September 20, 1857. With the backbone of the revolt was broken, rebels in one center after another were defeated. We can describe the revolt of 1857 as an unsuccessful but heroic effort to eliminate foreign rule. The 1857 revolt was the biggest threat to Britain's colonial power during its rule of the Indian subcontinent. Former Viceroy of India, John Lawrence, rightly remarked the importance of the revolt by saying that had a single leader of ability arisen among them, we must have been lost beyond redemption. This violent struggle led to the end of East India Company rule. In 1858, by an Act of Parliament, the Indian Empire was taken over by the British Crown. A new chapter was begun for India with the end of Company's rule. For many Indians, it also marked the start of their long struggle for independence.